Bonjour et bonsoir. This is Bradford Donald Keller Townsend, and this is a forward research report on Jewish mysticism and the crucial importance of dreams in Jewish culture and mysticism. Let me try to explain how, from a mystical standpoint, I try to learn the Torah, and using the Talmud, the Tanakh, the Mishnah, the Zohar canon. I was a top-tier world-class athlete, and was also a professional athlete, and I would drink shakes with fruits, vegetables, protein that I bought, and other amino acid liquid concoctions and things back then in the 1980s to build up my body. So, the rabbis teach that you are what you eat. So if I ate organic, this was even before they really had, it was popularized organic because I had family who were farmers and gardeners. I tried to eat what would today call organic fruits and vegetables, with vegetable protein, amino acids, extra vitamins and things, and I put it in a blender and blend it all up and drink it, and with the idea that this would be the building material, like building a building, a home, a ship, that would make up the cells of my body at the microscopic level, at the level of molecules and cells. And when I study the Torah, I've read it at least 50 times, the entire canon of the Bible, including the apocryphal books and the Christian books as well, and pretty much the entire canon of Jewish literature, as I spend some time every day, probably for at least 40 years, and watch at least a couple sermons by rabbis a week for decades now, and some Christian pastors as well, and even Muslims, to get, especially Sufi Muslim, Gnostic type Muslims, and always exploring, listening to gurus and others. But I still, I was told as a child I was a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, the viceroy of Egypt, the Technicolor Dreamcoat Joseph, son of Israel or Jacob and Yaakov, and the and King David in particular. So whether it be literally true, or it was kind of a way of putting an archetype into my electromagnetic fields of consciousness, and realigning and connections in my neural network of my body, that's the way I was raised and spoken to. And dreams are very important in Judaism. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob all had dreams. There's Jacob's ladder. I'm not going by notes. I'm just trying to let it flow as I've absorbed all this years of studying and sermons and conversations and emails and everything with rabbis. And other Jews of all, and all kinds of people. So I tried to absorb it rather than memorize it, have it built into my very sinews of my body. And so dreams, Jacob dreamed, Daniel is very famous for interpreting dreams. Joseph interpreted dreams. So this is in the very core of Judaism. And I was thinking different types of dreaming. I daydream, like I might be taking a walk or sitting in a lecture, and daydream. Sometimes I'll be listening to a lecture online. It could be on physics, spirituality, mathematics, a rabbi, and it triggers a daydream vision type experience. Then I intentionally lay down and get into like a half-sleep trance where I meditate, and I had years of training in meditation where I trained and meditated with others, and I would meet regularly to meditate. And I did this at a younger age, before any of this was very popular, as a teenager in middle school and high school, and with relatives and things on holidays and stuff. So then there's another state, which is a sleeping dream, and in there, the term I would say would be astrally project my body. And I could I could control it, like let's say flying a drone with a wide angle lens camera and fly around and look and observe things in this dream state, and then meet up with family and friends in that dream state, and also would have night terrors and scary dreams. So Jews were employed by monarchs and nobles as dream interpreters. And that tradition goes all the way up to one of the most famous, more modern dream interpreters, and that is Sigmund Freud. So he, again, in a previous video I talked about modern physics, quantum mechanics, and the general theory of relativity, M theory, string theory, those type of theories. I have the mathematical background that I can understand tensor calculus, which is linear algebra, and then you're using linear algebra for ordinary partial differential equations and matrices, which has different mathematical rules, where you're blending several different types of math, and in the Pythagorean and Jewish mysticism, mathematics and numerology, and especially three-dimensional, multi-dimensional geometry, and shifting between like phases or shapes is important. So using modern scientific terminology, there's morphic, which means shape. There's nested, where you can have something within a something, like when you compute a program, you have a large expression with curly brackets, braces, parentheses, and you start from the interior and work your way to the exterior, and because that's highest precedence. And once you've done everything inside of one parentheses, curly bracket, then you move to the next. So you have like a nesting of fields, and in Kabbalah, we could say those are sephirot, and they resonate, which is where they combine together to form a more powerful wave. Or you can have interference, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can be a good thing or a bad thing, and where you have multiple fields emitting waves, kind of like you're at a lake. Like Indiana, where I live, is on Lake Michigan, and there's a boulder, and the waves are hitting the boulder, and then still the boulder is a little bit out in the lake, let's say 10 meters, and then that creates new waveforms, and then it hits smaller rocks, and then that further splits it up, and then they collide with other waves, and all these waves merge until it finally dissipates into the shore. But right before it gets to the shore, you have multiple waves interfering and resonating with one another. And there's different kind of waves, such as transverse waves, longitudinal waves, harmonic waves, and so forth. and these have been known for millennia. So dreams, I just try to enjoy them and let them happen. I don't try to use them for any purpose. Like militaries and intelligence agencies have tried to do what's called remote viewing, where you get into a trance or sleeping type dream state and then go look at another countries or organizations, military bases, or their scientific research laboratories and that type of thing, or listen in on a boardroom conversation of the executive leadership of some other organization that you wish to spy on. I don't try to do any of that kind of remote viewing. When I have terror dreams that are very disturbing or scary, I see it as my neural network trying to deal with that trauma, and trying to sort it all out and to rewire and to deal with the problem, and tend to, although I am an opponent of optimism, and I think it is good to have a positive attitude, that they have to set realistic goals so that you have achievable outcomes. And it's better to set little goals and gradually build up, and then with that you build up your confidence. And you can walk and daydream, and you can meditate, like doing gestures with your hands while you walk, focusing on the gestures and your breathing, and let it go on. So you don't think about your heart breathing if you're walking and bicycling. I don't own any internal combustion engines because I don't want to put out noxious, poisonous fumes into the air. I'm trying to atone for water skiing and motorcycle racing, where I did a lot of unnecessary pollution. So dreaming is crucial. Almost everywhere in the Torah, you can link it to dreams. Every big event to dreams. I was going to do a next video monologue on angels, which are crucial to Judaism. The messengers, bringing messengers, like you have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Abraham was told to sacrifice Isaac or Isaac, and an angel appeared with a ram to sacrifice. And while at that time, in ancient times, like the Greeks and the sea peoples, the Philistines and others, Crete was powerful for a while in ancient times, they would sacrifice human beings. And even you could say the Christians sacrifice Jews on pyres, or burn them alive if they wouldn't recant their Judaism or their interest or their studies of Kabbalah. So you could say in some ways, they call it an execution. It's a fine line between an execution and a human sacrifice, or sending even soldiers off to war. And sailors, where some of them are certainly going to die, ahead of time, that you're going to be almost performing a human sacrifice. So, dreams and interpreting dreams, you could even probably do some kind of a search or using a concordance in the English language, and look into dreams in the Old Testament, and particularly the 5 books of Moses, and you can see the criticality and importance of dreams. And to this day, mystical-minded spiritual Jews, which is a minority of Jews, still place emphasis and do dream interpretation. And I'd like to put this out, that if anyone would turn my monologues into dialogues or an ensemble discussions, I would welcome that. And I use my actual name and my actual email, as I have nothing to hide and I'm trying to be transparent. So if anyone would like to join in and to have 2, 3, or 4 of us on a discussion, that would be wonderful, and we could get more. Sometimes the synergy of having 2 or more people, one of the Jewish terms is a midrash. So, if we like to just pick a general topic like dreams or angels with people here, and then that would be enjoyable and illuminating. It's good to what's called strong man, which I prefer to being devil's advocate, where you try to understand the other person's argument, position, policy, ideology, and even communicate it better and more accurately and concisely than they can, even if you disagree with it, so that you demonstrate that you understand it, versus a straw man argument where you make false claims about what the other person's thoughts, notions, beliefs, theories, maxims are. So I prefer strong manning, and sometimes I've made videos that strong man, and don't mean that I necessarily agree with it. It's just I think if you're going to have the full spectrum, it's good to have some arguments. Sometimes I make the argument that other people are afraid to vocalize, and I try to really understand, for example, why generals and chief executives and people behind the veil would push for war, and even if what benefits there might be from warfare, because Hashem, the Creator, ordered the Hebrews into warfare with specific instructions, objectives, and morality and mores of warfare. So not just to throw all the warfare out there. There is a good time, correct, righteous time to be a warrior, and there's a wicked, evil time and behavior that warriors can behave in. So just free-flowing monologue there. I'm going to put some images to this video, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I will say Auf Wiedersehen.